Breaking news here on the Cowboys Report. Lael Collins has signed to the Cowboys practice squad. He came in for a visit earlier today and is now joining the practice squad. The medical and physical stuff all checked out enough for Dallas. Been a tumultuous year and a half, 2 years, whatever you want to call it, for Lael Collins. He had signed the big deal in Dallas, then gets hurt, doesn't play as well, gets cut. When the Cowboys tried to find a trade partner, they could not do it. Goes to Bengals for 1 year, plays solidly enough, then ends up getting cut after he suffered a brutal knee injury late in the 2022 campaign. Wasn't close to being able to help the Bengals. Did much money by cutting him. Now returns to Dallas with his good buddy Dak Prescott. He's played left guard and right guard for Dallas in the past. Your left guard's banged up right now. Your right tackle's not playing that well. This is, to be clear, folks, a practice squad signing. So I'm not convinced that, and this should not be viewed as a Collins going to save everything. Prime Lael Collins is back when he was a top 5 right tackle. We fixed all of our issues. That is not the expectation. I don't even think you're going to see Collins be called up, especially not for the first final regular season game. I'd be surprised if that one happened. It'd be a fun surprise, I suppose. But the signing of Collins is kind of more of a give you added offensive line depth, which is basically impossible to find in January of the regular season. And maybe it either sets you up for next year and keeping him on the roster super cheap, or maybe in the event of injuries, you have a potentially upgrade, break the glass in case of emergency option along the offensive line. Remember, they get 3 practice squad call-ups. So hypothetically, there is a scenario in which Collins just gets promoted a few times down the stretch this year, depending on when he's fully healthy and in shape. The initial report this morning had said that could sign the practice squad while he gets into game shape. So we'll see how close Collins is. I'm sure Mike McCarthy will spill the beans on Wednesday if Jerry Jones doesn't do so beforehand. So practice squad signing of Lael Collins. Grade it for me in the comments section. A, B, C, D, or F. Sound off right now. It's the pinned comment, so if the ad comes on YouTube, take advantage of it. Head down there and go vote. Now, what have I said? We can go back and rewind the clock to when we first discussed this back in September when he had been cut. There is no such thing as a bad practice squad signing. So at minimum, this should be no lower than a C. This is very different than signing him to be a part of your active roster right now. That's not what you're doing. The physical part was key in this visit. Figuring out where that knee was. It was a bad knee injury. And clearly, Lael Collins hasn't been ready. He wasn't ready to sign because he took visits. Collins took multiple visits. He took some in October to both New York football teams, or I should say New Jersey football teams. The Jets and Giants brought him in for visits in October. And then it was radio silent for a long period of time. There was no buzz whatsoever, which told me the medical did not check out well. And then late December, Buffalo brings him in, which went, okay, maybe the medical's in better shape right now, and maybe Collins is in better shape right now. Because the Jets and Giants were decimated by injuries, and they didn't sign because they couldn't help him right now. Bills in Dallas actually have starting offensive linemen healthy, even with the Cowboys battling the Tyler Smith injury right now. And they still brought him in for a workout for added depth potentially along the offensive line. We'll see if he even plays, but they're trying to find O-line depth late in the year. It's almost impossible, but at least they're trying. Now, today's show is made possible by Prize Picks. If you don't know what Prize Picks is, I guess you haven't been watching our channel enough lately. Been a long-time sponsor this year, a great sponsor at the Cowboys Report. It's the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. It's just you against the numbers. You're not battling thousands of other players. There's no pros and sharks or sharps. Pick more than or less than on 2 to 6 player stat projections and watch your winnings roll in. Go to prizepicks.com/CLNS and use code CLNS for a first deposit match up to $100. The link will be in the comments section and the description of today's show. Again, that's prizepicks.com CLNS and use code CLNS for that first deposit match up to $100. Now, Collins played a decent amount of snaps for the Bengals this past year. What's not shown on this is that, unfortunately, Collins had kind of turned into a bit of a penalty boy with the Bengals this past year. He'd been a little bit of a penalty boy previously in 2021, but he had 8 flags in the snaps in 2022 that kind of reared their ugly head a little bit there. The pressure numbers were a little bit concerning at that rate. They had dipped below his normal efficiency levels. Solid run blocking grades, though, at right tackle before the unfortunate knee injury. Now, what's noteworthy here is that Collins, of course, has played both right tackle and left guard in the past. Now, what was most notable to me is that Dallas didn't think Collins could play left guard anymore because they could have just put him at left guard when they cut him, right? They could have done that. And that hip injury that I think had really limited him in 2022 to a certain extent, and even 2021 coming off the injury wasn't quite as good as he was back in 2019, had been kind of a problem from that standpoint. But again, we are in January. You have 10 players right now on your depth chart along the offensive line that are healthy, or at least on the active roster. Somebody has to go from the practice squad. I'm betting it's going to be one of them offensive linemen, but we shall see. So prediction time. Will Lael Collins play for the Dallas Cowboys this season? Y for yes, N for no. Sound off in the comments section. Now, there is the time at left guard. And I do think there is some very serious revisionist history going on with the left guard play of Lael Collins. He was a better run blocker at right tackle than he was at left guard. Now, he never allowed a sack, but he did allow a lot more pressures than what you would prefer relative to the snap count. The win rate was lower there than it was at other spots outside of his first year at right tackle. Now, part of that might have just been, hey, he's a young player. He was getting better. And there are some great pancake clips out there of Lael Collins pulling at left guard and bullying dudes. The down-to-down efficiency wasn't the same, although the highs were certainly quite intriguing. I think Tyler Smith has always been a better left guard in terms of run blocking than Lael Collins ever was. But again, he's played both, and you're kind of in January, beggars can't be choosers, right? You deal with what you can deal with, and there's no competent offensive lineman out there. Maybe a healthy Lael Collins can help you there. Now, the issue is he has not been healthy. The torn ligament in his toe in 2016, bad luck. The hip surgery in 2020, there's still debate over how that all went down. Was it Collins was out of shape and he hurt his hip, or was an injured hip why he was out of shape? Maybe we'll never know the answer to that one there. Had a back injury in 2022, and then it's kind of blunt, but he shredded his knee in 2022 as well. The injury he suffered was 3 torn ligaments, the exact same injury as Terrence Steele. Now, Terrence Steele came back like 6 months before Lael Collins did. Very impressive. Also didn't return to performance. That's why I'm not expecting, Terrence or Lael Collins to be the prime top 5 right tackle he was in 2019 before his hip injury. Doesn't really sound like he's ready to play. Again, that's based on the initial Ian Rappaport tweet saying that, he's going to sign to get into game shape, which we'll see if that's true or not, but I would assume the info came from Collins' agency. So my expectation of impact here is low. Like any practice squad signing, I'm not expecting, they become the next, I'm not expecting Joe Flacco impact. That's the outlier, right? This would likely just be depth. But it's January. Smart teams try things. What are you going to do? I'm going to guess they cut Adam Pankey or Billy Price, who I think is not a good football player. Like, fine, just do it. Who cares? A January edition, expectation, talent level, impact, all that stuff is very different than September, especially when it is a practice squad edition. So practice squad, you will never hear me complain. We shall see what, if any, impact Lael Collins ends up making for this Cowboys team.